Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening. I'm your host, Sir Stephen Topham at the third at your service. We're going to be talking about this seriously because now you want to know what connected what, etc., etc. You heard about Henry's life in every angle of the Cooper side of the family, but you want to know what made a particular storyline go so well from the early 1900s, which is true, which is no lie. And you got to work out on this because now I'm going to give you questions and the answers that you want answering. First of all, Henry knew something before anyone else did, all right? There were two people actually, my grandfather on my mother's side and my grandfather on my father's side knew about this. But the reality factor is you're looking at something that is realistic. Yes, it's hard to absorb that much information in one bucket. It is hard for you to acknowledge what's unfolding and putting yourself forward and going forward yourself. But it's really hard for you to fully understand, right? I'm now going to give you a hint, right? It wasn't just my great uncle that knew this individual. It's not also my grandfather on my father's side of the family. It's the other half. It's my grandfather on my mother's side. So why do you think I'm coming back to the Cooper family again? When Henry was just being brought up at Guildford in London, for example. Right? People know exactly what I'm about to say could actually put you right in the fucking centre. Excuse my language. It is gonna won't in the end of the day it will do anything possible to protect this. Protect everything that I hold dear as much as I'm holding my grandfather's memory because he's dead. Right? I can only hold and tell you what exactly. There is something about the coordinates that I got in my head that knows everything from everything, right? You have to get real. This is realistic. This is not a children's story. In the day, this is the reality side of the other half. The click, 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 click. It's all in play. But let me put this in perspective for you, right? On the map of Norfolk and the United Kingdom as well in general, you all are part of something bigger than your money's worth. But the NSFT won't give a shit, or NHS won't give a shit about it. But they will work it out backwards and they will say, fuck, we screwed up somewhere. Right? Are you wanting to blow up something that you don't want to acknowledge by, or acknowledge this, acknowledge that? Well, I'm going to give you a hint. Right? You see, my grandfather, Henry Cooper, wasn't was living in Guildford for a reason. There was a reason for that, and there's a reason why my ancestors in my grandfather's family that I never got to meet, right? Personally. But when a lot of people said there's my great uncle, my grandfather on my father's side, and my grandfather on my mother's side. What's there's three people involved here, not just my grandfather Cooper that we all know and love, Henry Cooper, right? You have to get realistic now because this is not about money making, it's about giving out proper information you need. Right? We know Henry is the public like the centre of the universe for. But did Audrey, let's say, one of my grandfather's best friends was Wilbur Audrey, Reverend Wilbur Audrey, the writer of Thomas the Tank himself, but he left a clue, alright. What he did is Audrey did something a lot more powerful than you thought. Yes, the Coopers and the Audreys are best friends. Before the Hatt family got entwined and everything else, It's played out the correct way, but now look at yourselves. Don't be don't be selfish and then feel like, what, he's cracked it already? Yes, the Audreys and the Coopers lived 50 miles apart. That's how far they lived. Why is that? I'm not going to give out Audrey's real birth location because that's where it will be hitting, right? So if my grandfather on my mother's side was the closest, right, and a personal private connection, ding ding, what happens? Work it out. My grandfather Cooper, Henry Cooper, worked his hardest as butt, done his job that he was meant out to do. Why was the book one so damn important that it made their personality so realistic? Why? My grandfather on my mother's side of the family knew the Audrey family as well. Why? Because they were 50 miles apart. This is before my mother was born and before I was born. So work it backwards. You're going back way back in time now. Now it's opening your eyes. Wake up and smell that coffee because now it's actually getting to the roots. You're getting down to the bottom of the tree, right? A lot of you out there in the Norfolk Railway, you better watch out because now I'm after you. Because I don't want my family to be disgraced, right? It's a word to express it in layman terms of anything. It won't suit its grace. Why? One southern language come out of my mouth because I know exactly what's on my mind. Every morning, every day, I worry about one individual. Why? Because I care about that individual in particular, and I care about my grandfather. I care about my family. Why? My family is very important to you as a whole. 8 billion people to think about. Even before we were born, before I was born, my mother was born, and before her sisters were born, my grandfather had to make connections, family, friends, connections, all three of them. Right? The Audrey family was the beginner, or the prying eyesight, to make sure he knew it was unfolding in the correct way, like anything. Why? You waking up, smelling that coffee now so bloody badly, you wish you hadn't actually crossed my path. But I'm the nicest engine of the all. Why? I'm not like my father. That's for starters. Right? People push me to that edge to push me to feel like, oh, right? You think what you see in the Thomas and the Magic Railroad is basically one big fat anagram movie. Right? Right? Everything plays out the correct way. Why? Why is Thomas and the Magic Railroad so dedicated? Why? It's played out let's say 3 times already. Work it out, it's going down the chain, isn't it? My grandfather was the first one on the list, Henry Cooper, then Charlie Cooper, then Lily Cooper was the eldest. Right, so work it out. 3 people, and then have the main connection 50 miles away, the Audrey family. So the Audrey family was LMS 30, which I am telling you the truth because that's what number he was. LMS 30. Why? He added a 7. Why? Because he wants a lucky 10 in the end. What? So the 10 was already in play before he was born. So work it out. 10, 10, 1983 equals my birthday, which is the way I wised. Bang! No, to all of you, it's like one big puzzle piece in the end of the day, right? All we have to do is continue where we have to continue it on. We have to push it further, right? My grandfather's dead, my mother's alive, and then you got my real father, and then you got my grandfather's side. You know, I get my point. And then I have all my other connections on top. Connections, family connections, and friends. right? All three of them, even colleagues, they all knew it was true and it was unfolding in the correct way. You don't want to believe it? Well, watch out because it's going to hit you like 1,000 volts, right? My grandfather wouldn't like you to treat me the way you do, right? I'm sorry it may upset a lot of people, but it's real, right? I'm not Diesel 10. Why? Because there's something a lot more different to me than anything, right? I'm not bothering Diesel 10. Why? Right? I do not want to talk about him, right? In this podcast, I want to focus on my grandfather and his connections, right? But Audrey chose two sets of families. Why? Because it's how it ended right now. You got me. The Hatts were done what it was done, meant to be done. Hatts married the Mansons. The Mansons become the next generation of the Hatt family. Why? Third generation. So work it out. It's gone forward, forward, forward. 3 generations later, you got me. And my grandfather, Henry Cooper, already seen this right through. Why? No hospitals because the hospitals can't get involved. Any NSFT can't get involved at that point. Everything played out correctly like it will do. But now you've got third generation going through this. Then the fourth, then the fifth. Why? There's 2 more generations of my family to come. But you, like I stated in the end, Henry Cooper, right, was only 50 miles away from the Audrey family. 50 miles. Why is that? A big, big clue was just given to you right now. Why? The Audrey family knew the Hatts forward slash the Mansons, of course, right, equals what, and the Cooper family. Why? All of it is true. Yes, the Hatts have wised back. Why? The prophecy already started long time ago, before even the third generation was born or the second generation was born. The first generation knew everything. Why? They're not here to witness testimonies against to tell you it's true. Why? Because they all dead. So work it out. My grandfather is dead. All his connections, family and friends and connections are all dead. Why? Keeping that secret under the bed. Why? They had their reasons, but with me, I'm a little bit different. Why? Because I want to make sure it be headline news when it comes out. The EDP will have to wake up, right? They have to wake up and realise it's a true story, not a bullshit, right? My grandfather had his connections, and so did Audrey. Audrey chose my grandfather on both sides of the family, the Hatts and the Coopers. Work it out. You see, the thing is, a lot about what's going on and unfolding in front of you right now may be the perfect beginning of the third generation's ending. Now, work it out. Let me put this in perspective for you, right? A lot of you out there that may be thinking about this a lot higher, saying the Coopers are not very far from the Audrey family. Yes, at one time. But guess what we did? You did not know that, but you let it unfold naturally. You let it play it out in front of. So my grandfather just done his jobs that he was meant to be doing, right? All the personalities, the storylines, the families, the connections. But there is one thing that you're not noticing, right? A lot of people said, why are these connections so damn important, right? We always talk about this, but it always comes back to my beginning of the family. Why? This is before the Lynns, the Coop, the Coopers were the main source at the time. The Cooper bloodline, the Reeve, obviously Christopher Reeve connection. You know, obviously Jackie Cooper, bloodline of a Cooper. Why? What did everybody try to do, and they achieved it every bit of the way? Why? A lot of people may not understand it fully right now because a lot of people try to absorb it or not understand it, or they might think, okay, boom, right? You gotta get realistic, right? A lot of people take a lot of patience and time through this. This is not a game, but we are on a timer, right? Let's just say, for for the sake of argument, that's all true, it's all happening, it's all unfolded, and you're not taking the bait. Why? My grandfather saw everything, both of my grandfathers saw everything. The Hats and the Coopers were all playing out correctly. Right? All we had to do was continue our lives normally as possibly with it, as best we can, to a degree, with all this Southern bloodlines back in our day. In the olden days, you don't have the luxury right now to able to say, look, these powerful families are here to save your fucking lives. Excuse my French, right? The Audrey family already knows there's a head of schedule, right? They could go ahead of schedule, right? Because why? Connection to the Cooper family. Why? Best friends. Why? We don't discriminate. We don't do this. We don't do that. We got our own. The way it's unfolded is the way it's gone, right? The Audreys and the Coopers went to Norfolk together. Why? Best friends of the family. Connection to the family. The Audreys then met the Hats anyway because of the LMS 30, which is why Porter 30 is the Audrey's number. So then, with 37 on the top, bang bang. Why? 3 plus 7 equals 10, which it leads back to me. So work it out. The DNA code is correct. Everything else is correct. But now you try and screw up something that could lead to damage. You don't want to damage something that's already playing out correctly, innit? History has a habit of repeating itself in front of your eyes, right? We acknowledged that Henry did his job, so did the Audrey family. Why? Let me put this in perspective for you. As you look north, and London are black bloody stupid, let's get them a wake up call, shall we? London is part of the key here, right? As well as somewhere else, which I cannot mention, right? A lot of you know why I said to you that history will stump you on the foot, right? It's in the papers, it's in the newspapers, in the past, hardback copies, if you will. My grandfather read them all, knew them all, do it all. He didn't have to sit down and do much more. So did the Audrey family. The Audrey family kept writing the Thomas the Tank books for your enjoyment, not bullshitting the bush. But at the same time, you have to realise it's real life, not a children's book. So as you anagram it and unsolve the puzzle completely, I do have the last piece of the puzzle, which I'm not giving to you. Why? Because that has to remain anonymous, which is what I'm doing. I may know the surname, but if anyone else did, they will have to keep their gob shut and let it play out. So, when the Audreys and the Coopers were very close together near Guildford and 50 miles apart, right? They went to Norfolk. The Audreys went on the left side of Norfolk, and then the Coopers went on to the right side. Why? Because they were doing their jobs they were meant to do. Right? Wilbur Audrey knew what he was doing, and so did my grandfather on my mother's side of the family. Get that into your heads. Connection, family, friend, connection. Boof. Right? A lot of you might think, what shit is happening? Yeah, well, what do you think my grandfather knew about on the Cooper side of the family knows about? He died. in 2004, I know something that you guys don't know. Some of you do know, but you're keeping your mouth shut because you have to let it play out. For anybody else that are not believing this, I said it's all fucking true, but bottom down, bottom up. So if the Audrey family were on the left side of Norfolk and the Coopers were on the right side of the Norfolk area, what do you get? Exactly. The answers were all there in black and white. But then you've got to ask yourself, if that's true, I'm not lying, right? Let me just stop sharing that for a moment. So realistically, what I say, it's all in damn truth and it's in logic. The Cooper family has been around for a long time. So realistically, what did you mess up there enough? I said there's a reason why in it, but the fact is, the end of the day, the Coopers and the Audrey's family were next door to each other from beginning to mid. Point. Why? Think about it logically. You got me, Stephen Topham at the third, at your service, but then ask yourself this question. Why? The Cooper bloodline isn't dead. It's still alive. Why? Ask yourself the very big question that you guys want to know. You got the Audreys and the Coopers side by side in Norfolk. Why? They don't live in the same towns, that's for sure. Why? When you look at Norfolk, you got the Audreys on the left side and you got the Coopers on the right side, but they're not in the same town. Why? Let me put this in perspective. Audrey was trying to give you a dead, flaming devil clue. How old am I right now? A lot of you know I'm 40 years old, and I don't look it because my facial, my face in general, and my height and weight and everything else looks like a 21-year-old person, right? The thing is, in the day, right, what happened in the past, it's unfolded the way it was meant to be. But you guys are not believing the magic because the only person that does is my grandfather on my mother's side of the family. My father hasn't integrated into the family yet, so work it backwards. Go on, you guys, work it out. You got Guildford, and you had 50 miles apart with the Audrey family. Why are they there from the beginning right to my grandfather in Norfolk? Think about it. It's quite simple mathematics. Come on, guys. How far is South Lynn or Kingsland all the way to bloody West London, at Norfolk, in Crosby in West London? Right? We know it's circling bloodlines. We know there's a lot of facts that a lot of people can't wiggle their heads around and finding out why are the Hatts, right? Let's say the Coopers in general, are so close to the Audrey family. Why? From beginning to their lifespan. Think about it. You're going instead of 1,000 years, you got a bloody little problem there. Tick, tick, tick. Right? You got to be realistic. Right? There's a reason for it in every angle. Right? People appreciate what they got, but they also appreciate what they're seeing and unfolding. Right? But when you look at me and look at my grandfather and everybody else, I'll tell you now, it's about time you did see what my grandfather did look like. A lot of people say my grandfather's a loony bin. I said, no, he wasn't. He's quite intelligent for his bloody old age at his time. Right? We all knew this time will come. Right? A lot of you say, what the shit? He's worked it out. Of course I worked it out. in every angle, and a lot of you are not picking up the pieces. So let me explain this in another way for you, right? Just letting certain things scan up. But there you go. What I'm saying to you is that Henry Cooper and the Audrey family were only 50 miles apart from beginning to the north, right into Norfolk. And the Audrey family were on one side, and then you got the Coopers on the other. Why? Right? There was a big reason for it, and there's a big damn reason for it. Think about it logically. Like I said, my grandfather has a lot of connections. After that, he made friends, connections, family, all sorts. But let me tell you something else, which would click into play. I said it was all playing out in one swing, and it's hit you in the face like a magnet. But what I'm trying to establish with you is what is unfolding in front of you now, right? You now got to look at it realistically and say, oh crap, he's telling the truth. Which is true, I'm not lying on anything on this. So if you really look back, you got to ask yourself a very big question and it's hitting you like a bolt. You probably got a lot of questions and answers, right? We always knew this day was gonna come and gonna start sorting things out, if you will. Let me just get myself sorted. Ding, ding. Now a lot of you know that the Audrey family lived in Norfolk. So does my grandfather on my mother's side of the family, Henry Cooper's side of the family. But what has happened? Everybody started to get connected, like any other sort. So work it backwards and go forwards again. So what have you gained? A third gen hat, obviously being me, but that's not the problem here. We're going backwards. So what's happened? If the Audrey family and the Cooper family were 50 miles apart, 40 to 50 miles apart, why? At the beginning, and then bang, book one starts. Why? Making connections, family, friends, connections to get the personalities and everything else in motion. But then you're disgracing my family for nothing. So when it comes down to it, it's all played out in front of your eyes and ears, and a lot of people are like saying, Yeah, well, it's true in every angle. So when you look back and realize, oh crud, yeah, well, it's all played out in the way it should. The only thing is, ask yourself the other question that you can't answer right now. A lot of people still can't get it right now because a lot of people still absorbing that information, right? Which I gather. So when you really look at it, right, deep down, the Audrey family has always been very close to the Cooper family. Why? All of it's all connected, but how? Three pieces to become whole. Why? What's the connection between not just the Cooper family, the Audrey family, and the Hatts? What are you getting? Ask this question, why? I'm bringing it to your attention. Right? There's a lot of things that I think about every morning to help you out here. Right? You've got a lot of questions and you need answers, right? In every time stream, we have to be very careful what you do on a day to day basis, right? People are going to start realizing and waking up, right? With the Audrey family and the Cooper family very close together by 40 miles apart, what nailed it to the coffin at Norfolk? Think about it. There's a time span there that you're not realizing, right? I realized it and I understand what's unfolded. But with you guys, try to work this out, guys. Come on, work it out in every angle. So work it out. It's going forward, and the Audreys take the left side of Norfolk, and then you got the Coopers on the right. Why? Best friends, connections. Why? Because they didn't argue, they didn't dispute it. My grandfather was really well respected. So was the Audreys. Why? Best friends of the family, connection. Right? In the day, I'm just basically just filling the prophecy as it states on the record, and you should listen to my friend from America, right? On the very first video. You should never mess with me, because now I'm third gen. I've got to be very careful, right? There is things that you need to know, right? After my grandfather moved to Norfolk for slash Sodor in Crosby, right? The story was basically getting ready for my generation. Why is that? Ask yourself a question here. If the Coopers and the Audreys started it, why, and they got to midpoint in Norfolk and split themselves up, why? If they were too close together, they would be targeted. Not just because they're famous or fame or everything like that. No, 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 no. This is a different cattle ball. Why? They've done it to keep the story alive, to keep you all happy, all supportive, everything you wanted on the silver plate. Well, this time you're part of that story because you come alive. Right? So am I. I'm already alive because I'm a Hat member of the family. So work it out. Then you're asking me who's my lady Hat. I may be Cooper blood, but I'm also there's three pieces that become whole, right? We all knew it from day one, from the early 1900s, right into the future, right? At this point, my grandfather, Sir Topham Senior's grandfather, right, was still working at salt coats in Scotland. So work it out. It's gone from that way, going down the chain from that land, and then in the other day when my grandfa when my grand when Sir Topham the first managed to have his first son, if you will, or grandson, he was already in Norfolk. Why? Because the chain went down. Why? It's to to establish this in one swing, right? There's things that you need to know to make it brilliant right? I know this is not a first thing on a Sunday morning you want to hear, but it's a thing you have to understand. The Audrey started it with the Coopers and it's gone forward in time. Now, I'm not going to give out all the private details of all of us because if it does, then we're going to have problems in everything we want to do. Right? The first thing is every child from the 1900s all knew there are things that can't always be explained, right? All of us had to have DNA codes, right? Which is true. The Coopers got a DNA code, the Audrey family got a DNA code, and then they go forward and forward and forward, And then when they meet halfway again in Norfolk, upside in Sodor, which way, left or right, why do you think there was a station on the Thomas's branch line called Drow? Well, it's Audrey in the anagram name. It's the same way they did it with me. Why? To make it easy for me. Why? Because now you got me. Bang bang. Now ask yourself, who's my lady Hat? You see, the truth is there. You just need to work out how did he know so much. I said it's all there in black and white. White people give out pieces of clues and puzzle clues. White everybody's looking for a Gordon, for example. Right? I have a Gordon, so does somebody else. But I'm not at liberty to say anything. Why? Because I'm letting it unfold naturally. But when people realise it's all realistic, ding ding ding, what's clicking? You're starting to pick up pieces, clues, answers, and you want to respect my family? How dare you boot me out of the North Norfolk Railway as example? Now that bloody crosses the line. Not me. I didn't cross the line anything at all. Why? Because you framed me, you bloody sods. You know, how well do you really know my family? How despicable are you? You know, you don't know my family at all, to be honest, right? And you want respect and you want honesty and you want trust and you want all of this, grow up and watch and learn because it's all unfolding in front of your eyes, ears and all. Why? Because people understand it. Why? The Audreys and the Coopers were only 40 to 50 miles apart. Why? When it reverses itself, ding ding, what happens? Then my grandfather, Sir Topham the first, as his grandfather from Scotland, worked his hardest, do his chores, do everything. Right? We all came together. Why? Right? When Sir Topham the first was born in 1934, as I stated in the Hat vi- true story video podcast that I did yesterday, I told you specifically what you see and you'll get the result. Right? You got to realise North Norfolk Railway is off limits. Right? Why? Because the Coopers and the Hats are back in action. Why? Because we have to fix everything. Why? Because I'm Cooper blood. I'm also Hat blood. Why? Because my grandfather, Sir Topham the First, was the one that also met Reverend Robert Audrey in 1958. So work it out and go forward. Then a year later, my mother was born. Right? We all knew this was going to be crash and burn, but it isn't. I'm trying to recorrect something now that's very delicate right now. Right? So you know what's happened. You know what's going on. Grow up and let it unfold naturally because I know the contact I'm supposed to be connecting with, right? Or marrying, if you like to call it correctly. But then you got to be realistic. There's something about what I'm telling you, right? It's unfolded in the correct way. But then you got to ask yourself, already told you the Cooper story from the beginning, Henry Cooper's story in the very first part, and now you got part two. Why? Because of his connections. Why? His friends. Why? It's not just the family side, it's the friends side. That's very important. The Audrey family are well connected to the Cooper side because they were best friends. Friends don't drift apart that quickly. Why? We, like I stated, I've been watched. Right? Eyes and ears everywhere. Right? A lot of you are going to have to get into your heads and realise how did he know about that? Okay, the NHS didn't get funded until 1945. Right? So did Sodor Day, as another example. We keep going back to that because that's the first thing that hits you right in the eyeballs of that. and everybody's working it out and click it all in play, right? But things had to happen, right? Good or bad, regardless, right? There are things out there that a lot of people do understand because they worked it out in their heads because they had the time to do it, right? So did my family. So, so did the Cooper side of the family. So did the Audrey family. We all came together as one. Why? Three pieces become one whole, right? People then start picking up the pieces as they go forward. Why? Family, friends, connections. Why? Why was book one so damn important as much as book 32 where I come into it as a 5-year-old kid? Think about it as Stephen Hatt, not, you know what I mean, before I become Topham Hatt the third. Think about it. It all makes sense, but then you got to realize where, why, why, why. A lot of people know the answers, but they're not going to allow their liberty to give it out all the time. Right? I mean, you got to be realistic on this because it's true. Right? I'm not discriminating everybody. Right? The only people that are discriminating is the North Norfolk Railway. It's discriminating themselves because they're booting out a lot of people they shouldn't done. Right? Which I'm going to put on record that they are the disgrace to this society or Norfolk in general and say, no, you can't go there now because it's disgraced at the moment. So realistically, I'm trying to fix things that are all in truth. You had the Audrey family on the left side of Norfolk, and then you got the Cooper side on the right side. Why? In 1959, as I stated before, on the 14th of January, bing! What has happened? My mother was born, Joshua Hatt. She wasn't known as Joshua Hatt to begin with, right? She married a Hatt, yes, which is my father, Charles Topham Hatt the second. But then you got to get realistic now. The Audreys were still watching from the distance. Why? Because my mother was only just a baby in 1959 to the to that bit. So by the time it became like let's just say another thing like this to go right, things that happened through my grandfather's era, set up at the first, while all my family's descendants all came down to Norfolk and combined together as one again. That's all the pieces needed, right? So you got the Hatts, you got the Coopers, and you got the Audrey family in 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 on the west side of Norfolk, right? You got to be realistic. My grandfather was on the east, and then you got my Audrey family on the left. Why? You see, because you're looking north, but when you look south, it's for the opposite direction. Why? Because it's all true. It's all logic. It's all facts. But in the day, people are going to pick up on this and work out, God, he's telling the truth all the way through this, and he's not lying through his teeth because he's straight to the point, which I am. In the day, you're going to end up realizing that the pattern's repeating again. You lost a lot of people again. You're gaining people again, which is true. You're losing the diesels to get them out, and bring out the steamies in. Why? We are more reliable and more really useful engines on the planet. Right? Steam is more powerful and reliable compared to diesel. Right? So diesels are partly reliable, but not all reliable through the heads. You know, I just had a clue on the internet just recently, right? It's got nothing to do with the Audreys or the Coopers. Like regardless, they live very close, side by side, all the time, right? I stated to you that Sydney is losing his memory, which is true. Bang bang, it was on YouTube, and that's not a joke. So Sydney, who Harker is losing his marbles. Like I said, the stories come true. So I am monitoring the Thomas community regardless of everything else, because the story is unfolding in the correct way, like it should. But for our real lives to continue further and further to get that the next generation of the hacks and all the rest of that as well, you need to get real and realize my mother was targeted by an evil diesel. Right in the end, pulled by the hair, dragged down the driveway, and my grandfather, Henry Cooper, managed to come through and said, "Don't touch that lady." Oh, he got a fat lip in the end from my father, Charles Topham the second. So work it out. He's not a decent guy, right? In reality, as a human being, he's a complete immature man you could ever marry. And at the end of the day, getting rid of him will be the big best starting point. Because in the day, you know, my grandfather on my mother's side of the family was more of a protector than anything. So he safeguarded us all near enough. So what happens? You got a third gen hat, myself, and now you're asking for answers that you need, right? Which I'll be fair to say, right? You have to establish that it's all come true, but then you got to work out why the Audreys, why the Coopers, very close friends, very close colleagues, connections, etc. And we've always kept together, side by side. We never left the Audrey family, and we never will do, in any angle. And when the hack showed up, that connected the whole full package that Audrey wanted. Right? So everything that everybody was talking about, saying like, "Oh, this is not happening, this is not real," blah blah blah. Piss off! It's real. Why? London Midland Service, the Great Western Railway Service, the Great Northern Railway Service, all of that is all connected. Wink, 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 wink. Why? All clues, all answers. And then everybody's asking the biggest question of all time, right? The Coopers and the Audreys are best friends, right? Regardless that Coopers and Audreys have been best friends for a very long time, we managed to proceed further and further, right? Now you've got another set, right? So, well, LMS 30, which is what Audrey's number was, Porter 30, right? My grandfather on my mother's side of the family was Porter 37. Now, that's how realistic it is, right? You're gonna start waking up and smelling that coffee, right? Because any day now you're gonna get the result that everybody needs, but it's gonna take a little while longer. Why? Because it's now got to the crunch, right? Which I will talk about in my next podcast. This is just part two of my grandfather's department on my mother's side of the family, not my father's. Because my grandfather on my father's side of the family has kept me safeguarded as well. Why? So the tragedy doesn't happen again. Thank you very much. And I'll see you in the next podcast. Thank you very much.